Today we're going to go over the top up-and-coming recessive morphs currently in the state of the market. We made a video like this over a year ago now, and it'll be interesting to see where I rate these this time. At number 5 would be the puzzle. Puzzle, since we've made this, has grown quite considerably, and it's starting to become a lot more affordable for visual. You can get puzzles right now for about $8.50, but this is about to break into what I'd call more of a mainstream. Now, I don't think this is going to reach the clown level. I've heard a lot of people say that puzzle is the next clown. Clown is right now, I think, king. Puzzle's not there, but it is very, very cool. This is a good one that if you wanted to get on something somewhat new, but you are on a budget and you're not dropping your $3,000 marks just to get into the base morph, but it's still something cool that you can start working into a lot of genes. There's still a lot of unexplored territory to go here, but what puzzle does is it kind of lives up to its name. It creates a bunch of these little teeny puzzle patterns all over the snake that can fit together or just mixed up as if you just opened up the puzzle box. As you can see here, it just completely blows up the pattern. Now, why I like puzzle is it shares the pattern along the back of the snake now. There's not many morphs that I think do that, but these give you a cool overall pattern in general. So you can see it from the top, you can see it from the side. It creates an unpredictable but yet clean look to it. But once you start to get into the bigger combos, you see a lot of big price tags, but not a lot done with it yet. You see here, there's a lavender puzzle, which looks absolutely stunning. Really highlights these nice lavender colors. Just take a look at this one, for example, the Super Orange Dream Pastel Banana Puzzle. The cool thing about banana is that I noticed when you're able to disrupt its pattern a lot, banana seems to shine. It really makes the lavenders in it pop a lot more, because I think that with larger blotches of lavender that they tend to bleed a little bit more and kind of fade out. But when you've got smaller ones, I noticed them to become way more vibrant, much more like tiger stripes. It's very stunning. Clown isn't even in that one, but you've got this crazy head pattern on it too. No Enchi even, but Orange Dream can affect that. And Orange Dream and Enchi are kind of similar-ish. Now, there have been other combos that have been made, but a lot of people make these combos and they're keeping them so that they can produce more and put a lot more combinations into these. Looking here, obviously you see what I believe might be the world's first clown puzzle at the time. Now, has it been produced again? It very well could have been, but you get a lot of the wonky patterns and stuff like that. What I really like is the whites that are creeping up from the belly. Now, combine this with a little bit more color morphs and then we're talking, I think. But needless to say, puzzle is definitely a gene that has a lot more potential, a lot more work that can be done with it, and is very, very cool. The next 4 that I mentioned, it's going to be tough because a lot of these could be argued for a much higher number than what I'm going to give them. But coming in at number 4 would be Sunset. You could argue that Sunset is actually number 1. There's a lot of buzz around it. But at the same time, there are a lot of people that are pointing out that the Sunset by itself rounds out. But the cool thing about breeding ball pythons is that we have ways to introduce other genetics into these animals that unlock the potential of them. Sunset is on the doorstep of becoming a more established morph. Now, my definition of established right now is that it is readily available. I do not see sunsets at smaller shows, but they're becoming more affordable now. You can get single gene sunset males for about $1,500 to $1,700 right now. And I would recommend, if you're going to do this, to start with a male so that you can breed it into your collection and work it to as many things as possible, create those hets, and then get them into a visual form. But it seems to be that you want to work sunset into a lot of genes that influence the brightness on it. I've seen sunsets with banana and they are very, very vibrant, and the banana really serves to counteract the brownout. You don't get something that quite looks like a sunset and it doesn't quite look like a banana. It's some sort of amalgamation of them both, and it's unique and cool. My favorite sunset that I have ever seen was at the NRBC show, the lavender sunset, which I think this example had some other things working into play too, but it really brightened it up. It's not where my mind would have went. Usually I'm thinking things like lace, Russo, stuff like that. And that brings me to my next point, that there's still a lot to be worked with sunset. There are a lot of people getting into it now, though. It is incredibly popular. There are a lot of inquiring minds that want to crack the code of sunset and get the ultimate animal. There have been a lot of morphs coming out recently, like the sunset clown you see here, sunset pied. There's been a sunset desert ghost. Honestly, the sunset clown I think looks great. I don't think a lot of people really talk about it, but I absolutely love the flames that just shoot up from the belly into the snake. And this really helps it out. It's lightened it up quite a bit. get to the point where the only dark point is just faintly down the back. And this particular individual right here is very expensive. And it is a snake that was on a recent video of ours of the most expensive snakes. You kind of see why the breeder believes they can set a price that they want. This is a male snake that's not going to get much bigger. This is what he looks like right now. The brownout can be beaten. Someday, this will not be $23,000. As these get worked more and more, the price comes down because demand is being met, and that's how markets work. And that's okay. In fact, that's very good because it sparks and fuels innovation. And then one of my favorite ones is the Hypo Sunset. I've spoken highly of Hypo, but I never really saw myself working it until I accidentally stumbled into it and then just started paying attention more. Hypo is not a gene that makes your ball python look like it's in shed. Hypo is a gene that makes your ball python look like it's radiating light. What it does for Sunset is it kind of keeps those darker patterns on the top, but keeps them in check, and it really just causes everything to glow. It keeps it lightened up and really staves off that brownout. Very cool snake, and a morph that's quite frankly not going away anytime soon. At number 3 would be one that is tried and true to my heart. If I was being completely biased, obviously this one would be number 1. And that would be because number 3 is Monarch. Monarch brings in these rich, beautiful colors. A lot of people have tried to compare it with Ultramel. Ultramel is its own thing, and Ultramel is cool, and quite frankly, Ultramel is a more established gene, but you can see the difference from birth. Monarch's colors and pattern are certainly beautiful, but it's the offset, darker colors that really take home the cake for me. You get these burgundy purples that come in and absolutely dominate the attention of this snake. I struggle to think of another animal that does it quite like Monarch does. And the floor is very much still open for a lot of things to be worked into it. What's even better about Monarch is that it really feels like Monarch also brings in its own certain colorful flavor of Desert Ghost. And let me explain. Monarch really cleans the snake up. Looking at this Mojave Monarch here, you could trick someone and tell them that this thing had Desert Ghost in it. The brightening and the cleanliness of this animal, there's very little bleeding of pattern or pixelation, but Monarch still has a long ways to go. Most combinations that you see available are just single gene Monarchs. Maybe they have a het and maybe they have one other gene, but when you have seen them in combos, they're almost always outstanding. Monarch G-Stripe also works very well, and fun fact, Monarch G-Stripe is the very first Monarch that was ever created. Most Monarchs that you find, male or female, are going to be right around 3,000 right now. Hardly something that's easy to get into, but if you do have the passion and the desire to invest that much in a morph right now, this is very much worthy of that attention. There is a lot that can be done with this, and more every day you're starting to see what people can do. The fire is not going out for Monarch. Recently, somebody actually created the first Monarch puzzle, in fact, something that I am working towards, and it is incredibly exciting, incredibly cool looking. It really blows up the pattern, creates all these awesome different looks. Easily my favorite Monarch that's been created is this one right here. The fact that it's able to keep this absolute rich colors into the face, looking like it's wearing some sort of mask on it. Absolutely in love with this animal. It's something I want to recreate and work towards myself, and usually I like to put my own spin on things, and I'd still like to, but this is right here dang near perfection. You've got a perfect contrast of bright and dark, crazy patterns wrapped around this snake like some sort of barbed wiring. Monarch is a gene that has an unlimited amount of potential with its bright colors that it brings with the pattern and the beautiful mahogany browns and purples that it's bringing in with the dark pattern. And the fact that on top of all of that can clean this snake up and show such a beautiful contrast. The sky is the absolute limit with Monarch. Coming in at number 2 would be the Monsoon morph. When we did this video last, Monsoon was number 1, and you'd be surprised at what took over, but Monsoon didn't lose any steps in my opinion. It just didn't come down in price, so there's not a lot of people working it. There's so much to say about Monsoon. It is the most wild pattern disruptor in the ball python community right now. It absolutely decimates and shreds the entire pattern apart. All you have left over is blown up stripes and dots along the entire course of the snake's body. The only thing that even stays somewhat the same is the head, and even that is still disrupted. You see these little leopardish type looks bleeding into the head a bit, but you still mostly maintain the eye stripes and whatnot. You definitely have a different look there. Monsoon has come down a bit. It was safely in the 10,000s, but you can usually find them still between 8 to 10,000, depending on what you're getting the morph with. A lot of the genes I see worked with Monsoon are Mojave, Special, Pastel can be put in there, and Pastel really just washes the snake out. Things like Crystal and Phantom, these are almost exclusively what I see. What I would really like to see are massive color changes, like the previously mentioned Monarch, Albino, or any of the other albinisms out there. Maybe even Ultramel into it right off the bat, but I say go big or go home and get that Monarch in there right away. The only downside I see to Monsoon is how do you work patterns? You can certainly get Clown into there, which has actually been done. The Pied has been done as well, but there isn't a large amount of examples of these. How do you affect that? Is this thing dang near already to its completion, at least in terms of pattern? And quite frankly, why would you want to affect it? That's its most charming aspect, but colors is really where it's mostly at. I think that this morph will remain a top priced morph for a little while to come, but there certainly is a lot more that could start being worked into it. And by the way, if you want to see some crazy work with Monsoon or any of the other genes that I have mentioned here, take a look on Morph Market's European section. They have done a lot more work, I think, with these than we have here in the States. And yes, ordering from there is probably out of the picture for most of us, but getting inspiration is not. You see a Butterfire Moray. Now you'll notice that it says Moray. It's another genetic morph of it, similar to how Banana and Coral Glow are the same. It's thought that this is the case. I'm not sure if it's 100% proven, but they do the exact same thing. Butter, however, is 100% the same thing as Lesser. So this is a Lesser Fire Monsoon, so to speak. And I think Lesser does a lot for this because lesser is more, as they say. This really helps and brings in the pattern and brings in a lot of cool contrast. Ironically, you start to see here maybe some of the limitations of it. Here's a Firefly Stranger Moray, or again, Monsoon. And I don't really see much that I care for on this one, personally anyways. A lot of that cool pattern has just been dissipated into like a dirty smudge on the top and a nice bright color on the sides, but it is completely washed out. It's crazy pattern. You can barely see the faint looks of it along its dorsal, which really surprises me that that would happen, because here's a Butter Firefly Moray that doesn't do that quite as much. It does start to wash it out a bit, but not as much. I would like to see this with just Stranger. Maybe it's been done. In fact, here's a Pastel Stranger, and maybe Stranger itself just kills that pattern, which surprises me, honestly, if that is the case, because here we've got another one where all the dots are just gone. I sound like I'm starting to be a little critical, but I am just pointing out that I feel there's a limitation when working these, and that color obviously should be the primary target for most people. However, experimenting is what this is all about. Somehow you could get these little spots to be even smaller. That would be insane. But suffice it to say that Monsoon is going to remain on top in terms of an up-and-coming gene that you might not see a lot, but it will command that price point that it is getting. And there's a reason for it. It's because it's the most wild morph out there. Before we finish, I wanted to go over one honorable mention, and that would be the Paint. Now, Paint made our list last year, and I still think very highly of Paint. Paint and Puzzle, to me, were perfect parallels of each other. They both did crazy things to the pattern, but one was cleaner, and one was dirty and smudged, like Paint would be. And while there's a lot that can be said about keeping things nice and clean and neat and organized, sometimes a little bit of controlled chaos is outstanding. And it's why I like genes like Pixel and GHI and stuff that really just disrupts things. And quite frankly, even though it's a pretty clean version of it, I'd say that that last one we talked about in Monsoon destroys patterns, but Paint creates this smudgy type look. It really looks like someone started to take one of those old school erasers and erase the bottom of the snake and then just stop when they realized that they weren't doing very well. That's why I think that Paint and Puzzle are perfect parallels of each other. You get a lot of crazy pattern disruption, but instead of a clean look, you're getting this smudged look. I love the paint gene, and I almost got into it instead of the puzzle. I still think that paint is going to go places. However, it has not caught fire yet. Now that could be a good thing for certain people because it means that there's a lot of ground floor potential on where you can work this gene. There's a lot that still, again, hasn't been done. And you hear me say that a lot in this video. They're just now starting to hit the scene. They're starting to get worked. Bigger breeders are starting to get into these things, but can't get into everything right away. If you notice, this one is still commanding a higher price point, and that's because there is not enough to meet the demand. Paint is overlooked, I think, by even a lot of the bigger breeders who will work it because they have huge collections. So of course they're going to work everything, but they might be working it to the level that you or I might be working at it in some cases. I think that there is a lot of potential for this gene. A gene that has similar flavors as like GHI, but creates this wonky, distorted pattern at the same time. And our number one up and coming morph would be the zebra. Zebra, in our last video, I added it as an honorable mention because I said that I think it needed to have more examples of itself, and I'd say it's done a very good job of doing so. Nothing does this. These are literal stripes on this animal. And if you notice when you look at pictures of zebra on Morph Market, they almost all lead off with the top-down picture. If you look at other morphs, they typically do not lead with a top-down picture because, as I said before, a lot of the cool pattern is to be seen on the side of the snake. This animal here serves itself to be very, very well suited as a display animal, especially since most of the time you're looking down on a bull python. I can't even get over how much I love this animal. This is just a zebra pastel, and it really brightens the snake too. It's something that, yes, the sides are insane. They're crazy. The pattern even looks like it's misaligned perfectly on the spine. Almost looks like someone just ever so slightly moved it. And I think that's insane because nothing screams so perfect and so clean, but yet it's off center at the same time. It's wild because this is almost like it has Desert Ghost in it. It's insane to me how something can get cleanliness and a crazy pattern morph like this. Pastel is known to be that gene that browns out, right? But it really helps and suits zebra out here. There's a reason why it's worked so insanely into it. And when you start to add things like Orange Dream, Yellow Belly into this, and then you can start bleeding those crisp, nice, beautiful colors into it, you get the best of every world. They develop incredibly beautifully as adults. Single gene zebras are becoming more worked. They're becoming more affordable. They're reaching into that 5,000-ish range. Now, I say that word reasonable, and some people are like, what are you talking about? That's not reasonable at all. I am referring to a specific group of people who are looking into investment ball pythons. We're insane, but the point I'm trying to make is that these prices are becoming more sustainable for single gene animals to be worked into collections. And it can now safely be said that people who are on a mid to slightly highish breeding level can start maybe thinking about making this their stick. If you are looking to make a splash, and this is the sort of money that you are looking to spend, look no further than this, because this is insane. This is a sort of a gene that normally I say het to het isn't the greatest, but if you want this gene and the hets are affordable to you, get that, create your visual, and then go from there. Yes, it'll put you behind, but you're behind in a project that's still got a lot of work to do and a lot of time to do it with too. This is a gene that can still be influenced with pattern, can still really benefit from lots of beautiful color morphs, works very well in my opinion with other recessives. Hypo is one that I see a lot work with this, and man, is it absolutely beautiful. Again, at risk of sounding like a broken record, I would love to see those beautiful monarch colors stretched across the back of it, and then the fact that they both serve to kind of clean up the snake a bit and create this nice, slightly brighter color, but yet you'd have this dark, beautiful contrast. That I can only dream about, of course. As you can see here though, there's really only hypo been worked into this, unless there's some genetics out there that I've missed that have not been made available for sale. That is definitely a possibility. Every time I make one of these videos, you guys are in the comments saying this has actually been made. Half the time I've seen it, I just forgot because apparently I'm going senile. Obviously, clown again. Putting clown in everything is where a lot of people's minds go. And what would something like pied look like? I feel like it would be very much like Enchi, where you'd get a very low white pied, but I could be wrong. Sometimes these interact in ways that you don't think would happen. There's so much room to work into this, and there are a bunch of beautiful examples. Zebra has catapulted itself to the #1 most up and coming for a very good reason. If you wanted to check out our video from last year on the top up and coming recessive genes, you can actually see that video right here.